So you can start.
Okay. So yes, good afternoon, everyone, and we here cordially invite you for our 11th interactive webinar on LLM from National Law University of Singapore, and we will be dealing with the careers for lawyers in technology and management. And I cordially invite here Miss Sinha and Miss Anushka Sinha. She will share experience of applying for an LLM degree at the NUS and a journey of making a career in the field of customer relations and automation while building her on legal expertise. She has previous worked as a media lawyer in Star India, and I think this is a wonderful opportunity for all out there students who are looking to interact with Miss Anushka Sinha and to ask her questions about her experiences of studying at NUS and then building a career in customer relations at an international firm. So over to you, Miss Anushka Sinha. And also I have with me Professor Simran. She will be discussing few important things with Miss Sinha.
Thank you, Mukesh, for that. And hi, everyone who's joining us on maybe this cold day if you're up north, and maybe better weather if you're not here. But anyway, thank you, Anushka, for taking out time to join us. Considering that you're not a student anymore, this isn't time for internships, but you're actually working. So thank you for taking out the time. And yeah, I am also very, very happy to say that Anushka has not just been a dear friend, she's been a roommate when I was studying in Jindal. So it's great to see you again. And yeah. So Anushka, like first things first, right? I know that you're someone who was always great with technology. You were the Harry Potter of technology. And you were like that since school, right? So I think, and this is something that a lot of students also face, and we often have these questions where they tell us that no, we thought we liked law, but there were all these other things that we were interested in, and all these other fields we were interested in, and we now feel that we really miss interacting professionally or academically with those fields. So how did you balance out your interest in technology while pursuing a very comprehensive undergraduate degree in law?
Okay, thank you for having me, Simran and Mukesh. So to start with, yes, I was very enthusiastic about technology right from the beginning. Even in school, I knew coding from school, and I still chose to go into law because I didn't want to do engineering and those traditional fields then. But throughout my law school, I still tried to engage as much as possible with technology. So I tried to learn coding on my own a little bit, pick up all the courses I could find on technology in Jindal. Then on top of that, like anything, I try to find relationships with technology in every course I was studying. So be it property law, try to figure out if software is a property, things like that. Just try to find those kind of connections throughout. Law school really helped me like keep that connection with technology and then eventually come here to the stage where I can now fully work on technology while also being a lawyer. So, yep.
And I saw how you did that actually. You were always very into about that, and all your internships. I think even in your summer school, you were looking at
Yes.
technology laws and the rest of that. So
Yeah, I think I got lucky as well because when I was doing my exchange and even when I was doing my master's, they had courses on coding as well for lawyers. So I also ended up in places where they were actually this advanced with like letting lawyers play around with technology because clearly like it's not something which is very common. But because I was able to do that, I think it was really like lucky for me. Yeah.
yeah, luck and like diligence,
Yeah.
right? Being so
Yeah.
elective and being
Yeah.
there on time and all of that. And then how was your experience at NUS? Like, I mean, did you also continue this whole thing with picking technology related courses? Because I know professionally you were not really looking at technology before that. So how was your experience at NUS?
Yes. So NUS, I actually chose NUS because it was one of the few universities in Asia which did IP and technology, which offered IP and technology as a specialization to begin with. It was just NUS and Hong Kong which do it right now. So that was one of my main areas to do it, reasons to do it. And so when I went, like, they have specialized courses that they offer only for our specialization. So I made sure to pick those up. But along with that, and again, I did coding there, but along with that, I also tried to engage with, like, the centers over there, with the professors who were teaching these tech specific courses, so that I could get more and more insight about what they were doing and how they were working. So I actually got to work on really cool projects on AI, on, like, massive levels of coding, on patent, joining AI with IP. So there was a lot of, like, interactions with all of this while I was at the US. So it was just about finding the right path and talking to the right people to get there.
Ah, um, and I'm sure, like, your networking even at NUS must have helped out quite a bit and everything.
Yes. I think with networking, the thing is, like, obviously we are told that networking shouldn't be you going straight away to ask for a job, which it isn't. And so which is why it gets a little confusing of how you want to talk to people and how you want to interact and get good value from those interactions. So one of the things that really helped in NUS was that they had an alumni program for us. So they used to connect you to somebody who's from NUS but has been in that industry that you are in for a really long time, has been working. So I was connected with somebody who worked in Standard Charter in Singapore, had studied technology law in NUS as well. And she really helped me talk through it. She made me, like, it wasn't really like we didn't end up doing the same kind of jobs career wise, but it was really helpful that she was pointing me to the right direction of how I should be approaching, like, step by step. Even general life advice really was helpful. And then, like, in the courses I took, the professors were able to really guide you, and, like, they have so much experience. So talking to them one-on-one was really helpful in understanding where they came from, the decisions they made. I had some professors running startups in legal tech, so that was really, like, different from, like, anything I'd seen in India. So that really helped me, like, broadening my understanding and scope to see that there are these many options available, so I can explore them as well.
Yeah. So we're on the right path then, okay, connecting alumni with current students. No, and that actually does help. I think that's something that all of us saw in a lot of the universities we'd gone to. But technical aspects aside, how was it culturally, being in a university like Singapore, which is still Asia, but safe to say fairly different from, like, what we are used to back home here. So
Yes.
how is that experience, of getting that LLM? I mean, studies wise, the people you met, just the environment, everything.
Yeah. So NUS, yeah, because it's Asia, it is similar, but it's actually more stricter than I imagined it to be, because it's, those typical ideas of how Asian cultures are a little more stricter with their academics. And it's not like a party fun town kind of a situation. And I went during COVID, so it was pretty much, like, very focused on that. And it was really interesting to see even that, like, we had a lot of professors from Australia that were visiting faculty, and they would be able to really pick up that cultural difference, because even in terms of, like, the class participation, it was really less in Singapore, because Singaporeans are not meant to, like, they don't not taught to talk to back to their professors. So it becomes kind of that they're too scared to talk, or they don't talk, and they'll probably email them. So it's just like a different cultural system, and we were very not, like, used to seeing that, like, even as Indians, and even as even, like, with the foreigners, the Europeans that we met, they were really like, it was a cultural shock in that sense, but it was obviously a great experience to see that kind of, like, difference in culture and understanding, and how they still managed to thrive in between all that. And other than that, culturally, obviously there is differences. There are ethnical differences, all of that, weather differences. There's a lot of other things going around in Singapore, which is different from India. And so all of that is, like, it's just a good cultural experience. It really broadens your horizons, and once you see what is different from where you are, you really, like, end up being more adjusting, more understanding. So all of that is obviously a great experience personally. Yeah.
No, as someone who was a fellow roommate in general, I think that you've always been very understanding and always very. But also
Thank
with
you.
the application process, how was that? Like, was it very overwhelming? Because given that we do have this understanding that in countries where the primary language isn't Indian, we often
Mm.
just assume that things are going to be much more harder to, get
Mm.
to and get along with. So did you face anything like that?
The application process was pretty straightforward. I actually think it was a little harder than the other places I applied to. Especially like I think Singapore is a lot more streamlined in the way they apply. So they have like one portal, and you have to like have everything exactly how it is. Get even your TOEFL scores need to be sent directly from the TOEFL office to them. So it's all really like following things to the T. But the great thing about Singapore is that it's very process oriented. So there's nothing that's going to get missed out, and they will reply to you. So just once you follow the steps one by one, you will be fine. But it's obviously like it's a lot of adjustment. You have to take the time to apply. Like you can't just decide one day that you're going to do it and the next day is the submission deadline. That's not going to work. It at least takes at least a month to get all your documents in order and do everything. Yeah.
I also feel that when you take your time and you understand the process first and without panicking, then start applying, I feel that, at least for me, that really helped. Because then when you're
Yeah.
actually applying, you're not
Yeah.
overwhelmed or doing that last minute thing of running around. Have you seen my certificate and
Exactly. Exactly.
my degree? Yeah.
And especially the SOPs are the most important part of your application, right? So mine went through like even you read it, a lot of people read it. So it goes through like multiple rounds of like vetting, checking, changing, so many things. You do all of that back and forth. So you need enough time to like really get to the bottom of who you are to be able to put things into that SOP. Yeah.
Enough time, enough friends, you need everything to do that. Okay. And I also feel that it's very interesting. Your, career trajectory has been it's been fairly different because
Mhm.
you had a very well settled career as a media
Mhm.
lawyer at Star, right? Which is like, at least on paper, like wonderful, great, right? You're set for life.
Yeah.
What made you then, apply for an LLM, first of all, like just as a degree? And second of all, and what really marked that shift from being like this media law person who was doing very well in a media oriented place in India and then moving to, a customer relations kind of a role?
Yeah. So first of all, I did always know that I wanted to do like a master's because I thought like there was a lot more that I hadn't learned and I wanted to learn. So I always knew that from the get go. But I wanted to experience working, wanted to see if there's like if it can narrow down my path further into knowing exactly what I want to study or where I want to be, which is why I decided to work first to see if there's a particular field that I particularly like, which is why I was doing media, even though I was very enthusiastic about technology. I started with media, which was more IP focused. There was some play-ins with technology as well while I was working, but it was still very much IP focused, right? So in between that, obviously, I think that this is a personal, like person to person difference in choosing whether I wanted to leave that media role or not. But so that's that. But I think because I always knew that technology was my calling and I wanted to be there. So even after 3 years, I knew that it wasn't the exact fit for me. I was good at it. I liked the work. I liked the people. And it was fun. It was media. It was Disney, all the right words, all the right catchphrases, all the right parties, all of that. But even with all of that, I knew there was something was missing, which is why I decided that I have to do further, like develop into technology and then figure out where I want to go, which is why I decided that it's time to do that LLM, right? And so then when I was doing the LLM again, I had to focus exactly that I have to do it only in technology, finding the right universities that are offering the right courses for me. I didn't want to go in and get stuck in a place where there isn't enough development or involvement with technology and then I don't have enough. This is what I realized when I was working in media was that like if I was working, I did some work for Hotstar as well, and you would think that's all technology, but it's actually just media again. So there's like a difference between what technology law is and what firms that have technology do. So there's a big difference in that. So understanding and realizing that was where it really changed like that game for me because I realized that even if I went into a startup that did only technology law, it would still not be technology law. It would just be labor law, all of that mixed together in that firm, right? So that was the biggest realization for me.
Yeah, no, and I think that is something that a lot of people, struggle with at some point, where you have to make that choice about, okay, do I want to take a step back and, do something else, or do I continue being where I am? And I think I also go by what you say, which is that, you should enjoy what you're doing. You shouldn't think there shouldn't be any what ifs and all of those. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
Also, you're someone who's made a shift from like an MNC and a legal role in that MNC to an international firm, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure that comes with its, its challenges, and also I'm sure there are perks to that. So, how's that difference been, and what would you recommend?
Yeah, okay. So I work in a startup, but it's very international. So we have people from London, Singapore, Africa. We have clients from Australia. So it's a very global mix of everyone involved. So that really like challenges your understanding of culture. That's for sure. So when you're working in, and even though if I was working in an MNC, it was still like there was like a US overhead to it, and then you could see a little bit of the cultural clashes. You could see that, but when I came here, there's really a lot of cultural undertones that you have to grasp and understand before you can actually start speaking to people. And because I'm in a customer facing role, I actually speak to all our clients, all the law firms, all the companies, all of that. So you have to be very careful in the way you direct yourself, you present yourself, because each different culture has different ways of talking, of communicating their point across. So there can be very easy ways for people to take offense. So it's a very interesting thing, but I definitely love it. I really enjoy it because, of course, it's so much learning, so much cultural insights, and because of the cultural differences, I think people are a little more careful with how they behave around everyone. So it becomes quite like easy for me to navigate my borders, as long as like there's a lot of space and freedom given to like for me to do whatever I want. And that's because, especially because I'm in a startup, there's again a lot of freedom in terms of the choices I make and how I want to behave. So yeah, that's really helpful. Yeah.
No, and that I think that's also like a very enjoyable experience, and I think that's I'm sure for you also it must have been a continuation from your experience in NUS, where you do interact with a lot of people from other nationalities, and you
Yeah.
realize that you, especially being in Singapore, realized very clearly that there's a different way in which people work, and
Right.
that's always a thing. But also the $1 million question, as someone who was primarily an India qualified lawyer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we know that an LLM doesn't necessarily mean that the doors to practicing in another jurisdiction open up to you. It's just a specialization. So how did you go about applying to these? Because I know you
Yeah.
did apply to multiple international
Yeah.
firms and places. And what do you think, really clicked for you, since you did
Yeah.
manage thing at
Yeah.
Avoca?
Yeah, so this is something I was speaking to Professor Mukesh just before the call, right? Was that you really need to like, if there is a particular thing you have in mind, then you might need to change your direction entirely of how you want to approach it. So if I wanted to work abroad, then I actually had to change my entire field of that I was working in. I changed from being a traditional lawyer that was working in an MNC to becoming essentially a non-lawyer at this point, right? So that was one of the approaches that I had. But another main thing that really helped me was narrowing down and focusing exactly on what I wanted to do. So this came across after a lot of conversations with professors, with people in NUS, across even like, just generally people who are working abroad or in India, but just generally people who are enjoying their roles and had a hard time getting there, but they got there anyways, right? So that was the most common advice I saw, was that really like pick what you want to do and stick to that, right? Regardless, like if you get rejections, you get rejections, but you will eventually get it right, and you'll at least be happy once you get there. So you just have to wait it out, pick exactly what you want to do, and then just plan your way accordingly then. So that was one of the things that really helped. The other thing was, yes, I did apply to a lot of places. And the thing was, even though I'm doing a legal tech role, so this is And it doesn't require any kind of like international qualifications, like legal qualifications. I saw even in a lot of like places still they required this kind of like bar exam qualifications, all of that to a particular country. So I knew that that was a no-go. So I finally found Avoca because Avoca was hiring people even without legal experience. So it helped that I had legal knowledge, but it didn't actually like entirely highlight that because I had a lot of technology knowledge. That's really what sold that for them. And obviously it helps having legal knowledge because we're talking to so many lawyers on a daily basis. But otherwise they weren't looking specifically for a lawyer, which is why I think it was easier for me to maneuver my way into that position. So it's really a matter of changing a perspective of where you want to go and how you want to go there. Yeah.
And I think it's also very interesting what you've spoken about that, when you're looking for a job, it's not like every job is going to be like, oh, please come here and work for us. I think, rejections are an equally important part because I personally learned a lot from the kind of rejections I got. Like my CV was updated every time I got a rejection.
Exactly.
In fact, at one point when I got an acceptance, I really just assumed that I was getting a rejection again. And I was all set to now focus on what, and it was a pleasant surprise as well. So, did you also make those changes, like those technical changes with, not getting a job that you might have applied for?
And definitely, I think every time I got a rejection, I was like, should I change my CV a little more? Should I like purify it a little more, make it more centered? And I would try, I think I did it for like a couple of times. And then I really I sought out what exactly I wanted to look for, where exactly I wanted to be. And then I made sure that's captured in my CV, regardless of what I've done, where I'm coming from. Like I had all of this years of experience from being a media lawyer, but that had very little focus in my CV because I knew that wasn't helping with where I wanted to go. So really like changing, curating your CV to ensure that it had all of those kind of aspects. And then other than that, there was a lot of other kind of things that actually went into after the first shortlisting of your CV. There's a lot of interviews and all of that. So you're having those answers right as well of where you want to be, what you want to do. Having all of those clear answers really helps placing yourself, and like you'll also be happy if you get that exact thing that you want, right? So it helps both sides. So it's really good to have like that clarity from the start.
Yeah. And I think interview preparation is also something that we often take for granted, right? We're so happy that we've cleared the first round, that we forget. And, I've heard of stories from someone who's in recruitment who told me that, sometimes we ask them, okay, do you know exactly what the vision of our company is? And she's like, the candidates are just lost for 2 minutes. And she's like, then I prompt them that this is what we're working on.
Yeah.
And I think these are the small details that could go a long way.
Yeah. Exactly. There are some questions that are always like common across all the interviews. So having prepared for that is 100% important, but you still miss out. Like I missed out on some of my interviews because of like this questions, very basic HR questions that came at me, but I had no answers to, like something that you struggled with, and like you just can't come up with it at the moment. But this is why you have to prepare for it in advance because you know these can come up, and if you're not prepared, it's just gone. Yeah.
No, but I think as a former law student, all of us, can relate to that feeling that I know a lot of my students start feeling along, during their fourth year, fifth year, third year, first semester, that they don't want to be lawyers and they're done with the world and they want to do everything else but law, right? And eventually, for some people, it's just a passing phase, and you realize that no, your commitment to law remains. And but for some people, that's a very real realization that they are really interested in a traditional law role, right? And since you are someone who's broken out of that mold, right? If there was some advice you would like to give students who are joining us and listening to us, that how do you, so it's not just about breaking out of that traditional legal role, but also something about the kind of challenges that you have to face and how do you overcome that? Because I think even for you, right, you initially did go on with an LLM, so it's not like you just said, okay, no, I'm going to do something completely new. And then within that, you've clearly told us how you found a role that is better. So if there's any advice you'd like to give them, a little bit about the struggles that, I know that you've gone through, and I think that would really help them.
Yeah. I think this this happened to me also, this existential crisis of like, oh, do I want to be a lawyer? I don't know if I have faith in the law to actually pursue it, things like that, like in the middle of my law school phase. And at least I finished law school after that. And the thing is, I think there's a lot of societal pressures as well, like parental pressures, all of that, that you've done all of this, you've put all of that effort into building your law school, into building your education. So do you really want to just give that up and go? So this is why I continued to like keep trying. And it actually like I didn't hate it. I liked it, but I didn't love it, right? That was the difference. So just finding that path was hard. And it's much harder when you don't have complete visibility on the things that are available. That's why finally doing that LLM in NUS helped in understanding what was available for me to do. It's only when I found out that legal tech is a career that I can actually, pursue, which I didn't know until like till I reached NUS. So that I didn't even think that was possible for me. So I think even if you are disillusioned with law and you want to give up, that's fine. But keep your backups ready and keep doing it. Like try it out at least. You might just like it. I know a lot of people in the law fields who start something, hate it, but then eventually they really start liking it. So it really depends on how, like it's just a person to person thing. And so it really depends on how you approach that career and how you make the most of what you get, right? But other than that, like we've been seeing throughout, like networking is very important, not just because you want to find a job, but because you find out who's doing what in which legal field, like where did they go from doing law. Talking, I have, okay, sorry, I think I got stuck. Yeah, so talking to people who've done these unconventional careers after law and understanding whether you think it's the right opportunity for you. And they have a lot of knowledge. All of these kind of people, the professors I met in Singapore had a lot of knowledge, a lot of help to offer to me. So all of that really helped in like putting things into perspective. So I think it's just, obviously it is a person to person choice. Don't recommend just dropping law. Try it out, do a little bit, but keep your options open, see what's there, and then like make sure you understand what you're getting into before you actually just leave everything, because it's a little hard to go back to law once you have started something else. Yeah.
No, and I feel, and I say this with utmost professional pride, I say that I think with law, it's truly such a dynamic field that you can find so many things you want to do. I mean, I never wanted to be a traditional lawyer. And honestly, I don't think I had the talent for one either. And I love the law. And I remember having this conversation with you where I told you that I don't know what else I could have done, but I definitely don't want to be a lawyer. And, we've found paths for ourselves. And I think that's a good thing. I think law as a primary degree is fairly diverse. Also, we know it's not the easiest degree, despite what the world thinks, if you're not an engineer or a doctor. But I think it's something that I think you need to think about it. And I think the session today with you has been extremely informative. And, I think everyone who's going to see the recording of this as well, because it's going to be on YouTube, I think they're going to really learn a lot. And also get a lot of courage, which is the whole point of this, that you don't need to be scared now.
Yeah, there's a lot of options. Don't be scared, yeah.
So thank you so much, Anushka. And now, Mukesh, if you'd like to say something.
Yeah, so there are also certain questions from the students, and I just want to put forth that as a lawyer, we understand the importance of learning, reading, understanding the concept of how we have to interpret statutes, judicial precedents, how we have to go through. But Anushka, tell me, like reading, learning, interpretation, and this is a skill of a lawyer. But what do you think the role of technology and management is there in law, and how it will play a vital role for a lawyer to have this technical skills, and also a managerial skill? Because this is something, because even as a budding entrepreneur, I should be aware about, and even as a lawyer, because everything is driven by technology in the current scenario. So I think I just want to know about that. And even one of the student has briefly asked about this. Yes.
Yeah, it's actually because law is such a traditional field. It's really surprising. I mean, it's not surprising, but it's sad that technology is so less in law, let's say. Like there's really less interception of technology, even though every other part of the world of like industries, e-commerce, everything is just so immersed with technology, but with law you see very little involvement. But this is where the changes are happening now. Like after COVID, especially, everything went online, courts went online, all that had to like massively change, right? So I think people have realized that technology is going to come up in law. So there's a great book I would recommend by Richard Susskind. It's he's a great author who's dedicated his life to legal tech. He's been writing about it since 1980s, which is insane because how did he even know? But he writes about all of this and the future of lawyers in this technology world. And it's really nice to like, even when I started working in Star, there were a couple of things which they were already trying to like push in terms of technological changes. And you could see like the older lawyers being really stubborn to pick it up because they didn't want that change. So that pushing that for that change has been really hard. I see that constantly in this workplace because we are selling technology to lawyers who don't want to change, right? And the problem is they're too scared that it's going to replace the work that they do, which is why they're really scared to pick it up. But sometimes you just need to know that it might change the way you work, but it won't replace you. So you need to really, or even if it does, you need to really, that's why you need to pick it up and you need to understand how technology works. Otherwise, you might just become obsolete in the next 20, 25 years. So that's really like an important thing to consider. It's just how everything, everywhere else also works with technology, just law is just really slow to pick it up. So yeah, we're now getting there.
Yeah, thank you for this. And there's another question that because now you are working in completely different domain. So how do you, how do you cope up with that? And what do you think that inheriting the law knowledge of law and studying for 5 years and then working as a media lawyer, um, do you think it helps and it becomes easy? The other job becomes very easy because as a lawyer, we know everything of everything, and
Mhm.
somehow we try to enter into different domain and become very confident about because we know the rules, we know the bylaws and everything we read. We are well-read people. So do you think it helps?
Yeah, of course it helps. So because I worked already, I had a very easy, much easier time navigating how to deal with people and that those relationships at the workplace, right? So just working helps with that. That's one thing. For me, because I'm still working in legal tech, having that knowledge for law, have knowing what, because I'm working specifically in contract automation. So I worked a lot in contracts when I was a media lawyer, and when I was studying, and I knew what drafting was about, right? So all of that really helps in trying to get like that conversation across to my clients to figure like for me to talk to them because they're at the end of the day lawyers, right? So it's harder like for anyone else. We know that it's harder for lawyers to have conversations with other people. So that really like having that common aspect is really very important to be able to understand what they are saying and to be interpreted back to them. So that's in the end, all experiences are going to be important. It's just how you make use of those experiences that you have. Out, at least you know that you tried it and it didn't work. Like it's at least that. So there's just two ways about it that are helpful in both sides. Yeah.
Oh, great to know that. And I think this is a wonderful session for our students to actually, because this is something, if they want to try beyond the law and having the master's degree in law and then trying beyond the law, it is something that will surely motivate them. So, Anushka, any closing remarks, any motivation you have for general students and how they can feel comfortable in trying something beyond the law? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you have the passion to do something, don't get scared. Even if you feel like you are stuck, you're not. You can always leave and change your career, change where you are. So don't be scared. Try, experiment, speak to people, and have the courage to actually change your current stance in life. Yeah.
Yeah, great. So anything you have to say, Professor Simran, because you had this plethora of questions and about technology and management. So anything you want to close with, and then we can go further. Yeah.
No, I think Anushka's done I think, a great job of, sorting out all the confusions that I'm sure our students must have had about this as well, right? And I think all of the advice, Anushka, all of these, snippets of information you've given, I think this doesn't just work for someone who's looking specifically for a tech role after law. I think anyone who has, who doesn't want to work in the traditionally what we understand lawyer jobs of corporate lit or, scholarship and research, I think they can all, take a lot out of this conversation because, in the end, I think it's all about really more than realizing, accepting the fact that, yeah, maybe you're not for the first 6 months of your career be the poster child that your parents will parade around saying, see, I have a corporate lawyer in the family. And, but I think once you accept that and you start working towards it, I feel that it's not the end of the world if you don't want to be in a traditional role, right? You can obviously always build on your experience like you have, right? And still go and work out. And I'm sure, and do correct me if I'm wrong, right? The decision to do an LLM, despite the fact that you clearly realize that your focus is on technology, was also because you were very conscious of, there being some safety net, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
not everyone has to go all out and be the rebel.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important to point out. I often tell my students this, that not everyone is the superhero from the first page of a comic. Sometimes it takes the first 10 pages for them to realize that they actually have superpowers. So I think that's good. And thank you so much for joining us. I know it's a busy work day for you.
No worries.
Thank you for joining us. And yeah, I think this has been great. And thank you,
Thank you
Mukesh.
for having me.
Yeah, I also, as Professor Simran mentioned, that of course, not not only the people who are enthusiastic about technology and management, even the budding entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
If after law they want to be an entrepreneur, they want to have their startup. I think this information, what you have given, is very important. That you need to narrow down your CV. You need to narrow down your approach, what you really want, and you need to be very clear, because it's not that you have completed law and you want to do law. That is not the only scope. You have
Mhm.
many things for that after that, and even after your graduation. So I think thank you, Anushka, and for your valuable time. I think this session will really help our student to try something which they really want to do, even after their masters or even after their graduation. So we are really happy that you have given us your valuable time. And also, I would like to thank you, Professor. Thanks, Professor Simran, because she has done all the hard work with me to have this wonderful seminar. And we look forward to have you again with us, and surely soon.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, Simran and Mukesh. This was really
Last
good
quick
session.
thing, Anushka is also on LinkedIn. So for our
Yeah.
students who want to get some advice, since she is the alumni of our university,
Yes, please.
please do reach out to her, and I'm sure she'll be able to help you out. But on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Let's
please
not
write
go
to me.
around.
I'll happily respond. Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you so much, Professor Mukesh, and Team Cashel for
Yeah,
organizing this whole
Ashal,
thing.
and thanks to our wonderful students who have joined this session.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
we'll, Charlie, bye
Thank
bye.
you all. Bye bye.
Bye.